Hello again. It's 4th of July. Hopefully you can tell. Yeah. Anyways, for this video, this sort of popped up overnight when I saw this big kerfluffle about Christie blocking off access to a beach, or at least that's what the media is trying to make it look like. That he purposely closed off an entire beach from the public so that he and his family could be on the beach. And I was like, nah, he couldn't have done this. There's no way he could have done this on the 4th of July weekend. Well, it turns out that, of course, the media was leaving a whole lot of stuff out, and that is, apparently there's some government funding or something like that that's not being put through by, it sounds like, the Democrats. And Christie has had a government shutdown in that area. So that means all publicly accessible things like state parks and state beaches and all of those have been closed to the public. Now the thing is, Christie's residence, governor residence, is on that beach. And so basically he went onto the beach and had fun with his family, even though it was closed off to the public. I have not seen any word as to whether or not other residences along that beach were also not able to use the beach while Christie was on it, but it seems like, once again, the media has been fibbing, or leaving things out. Not really fibbing, but leaving things out. They're painting Christie as this tyrant who closed off the beach from the public on the 4th of July weekend and prevented the public from enjoying the beach, when in fact there's a whole mishmash of a whole bunch of other things going on. Now that kind of leads into another issue, and that is about how government officials, I'm sort of seeing this where government officials are, quote, aren't really allowed to enjoy being out in public or being out and about. I see people getting mad at the president, not Trump, but Obama and other presidents, for going out with their family and doing things. And of course, when this happens, the president and their family have to be guarded by Secret Service. Whole areas have to be cordoned off, have to be securely inspected, and all of those things. Now, this leads to another thing, and that is, why is there these protection things when it comes to the president or other government people? Like with Christie, even if the beach wasn't closed to the public, if he wanted to go out onto that beach, because of his position in government, that section of the beach would have been closed to the public, because our governor or our government critters need to be isolated from the populace. And a lot of people get pissed off at this. They get, oh, they're higher than us and they get treated better than us. No, let's look at what happened a few weeks ago when a few Republicans were out practicing a baseball game. They were out having fun. They were out doing practicing for a charity function that happens every year. Apparently, it's a real hoot. It's a real fun thing. But somebody came along with a rifle and started shooting at these people and almost killed one of them. And these are just people who were practicing for a fun thing. So that one instance sort of illustrates why we have these protection things around government officials and these sorts of things. This leads to my next point. There's a lot of people who gripe and grumble about protected classes, about protected people, about hate crime laws, about all of these things. And here is the thing. All of those things are the result of the actions of, shall we say, assholes who decided to take it upon themselves to shoot or hurt or kidnap or some fucking thing government officials or people who are different. Now, government officials are a little different because, you know, they're government officials. But this gets to my other point. Actually, before I go into that, there is, you know, the reason why the Pope-mobile exists is because somebody took a crack shot at the Pope. The reason why the president rolls around in the heaviest land vehicle, sorry, not the heaviest land vehicle, but the heaviest limousine in existence, called the Beast, is because of the assassination of John F. Kennedy, who was in an open-topped vehicle going through a city. And what happened? We all know what happened. Kennedy got shot. So after that, there was plans to build a vehicle that would protect the president from any such thing as that. And the Beast is designed to protect the president from a blast that would take a tank out. So the reason for these things is because people have threatened or acted in a manner that, in some cases, killed officials. Back to my other point about protected classes. First of all, I'm not for hate crime legislation. I'm not for it. As far as I'm concerned, if you shoot somebody out of cold blood, you shot somebody out of cold blood, it shouldn't matter why. You killed somebody. If you beat someone up, whether or not you beat them up because they took your money, or no, not took your money, absolutely not, because you wanted to take their money, or because they, I don't know, somehow offend you. It should be the same reason. You know, when you have someone beaten up because they're black, or beaten up because they're gay, or beaten up because they look funny. You know, Sophie Lancaster is a grand example of someone having their life ended because they looked different. Those kinds of things. That is why hate crime legislation has been put into place. Because people were bullies. And these are the direct reactions to actions of bullies. SJWs. I'm not happy about SJWs, but I'm not going to deny the fact they exist because of all the hate and just the hate and vitriol directed against people of different classes. You know, all the hate to gays, all the hate to blacks, all the hate to people of color, you know, all the discrimination. I think it's an overreaction. I think the SJWs are actually doing more damage than good. But there is no denying that there is a reason for the existence of these groups. So on the 4th of July, we are celebrating the formation of a country that is about freedom. I know there's people who contest that, but at its roots, it is about freedom. Freedom from oppression, freedom from tyranny. Now, freedom from tyranny. James Madison, a founding father of this country, brought up a thing called tyranny of majority. He was talking about how a pure democracy could not last in this country. And I think he's right. A pure democracy could not work in this country because if we had a if we went by a pure democracy during the civil rights era, the majority of the country was against blacks gaining civil rights, and that majority would have won. You know, the tyranny of the majority can be a very bad thing. An argument I hear against trans rights is, well, they're only 0.004% of the population, so why should we change our ways for them? Yes, they should. You shouldn't change your ways. You shouldn't change your ways for them if your ways are not hurting them. When you discriminate against anybody, you hurt everything. You know, when you discriminate against someone who is doing something that hurts no one, takes money from no one, takes air from no one, takes property from no one, all of those, why do you do it? It's just because you're being a bully. And as we were talking about earlier, all of those bully actions led to this mess we have now. I think they led to what we have now. Far be it for me to quote Ayn Rand, because I'm not really a fan of what I have heard of Ayn Rand. She does sort of get into this tyranny of the majority thing. The quote here, Ayn Rand wrote that individual rights are not subject to a public vote, and that the political function of rights is precisely to protect minorities from oppression by majorities, and the smallest minority on earth is the individual. I'm an individual. Amber is an individual. Everybody is an individual, and I think this is where the SJWs kind of go off on a bad course, and that is because they're very collectivist. They're very separating themselves from the mainstream instead of saying, no, we want to be part of the mainstream. And that is, in a way, to my knowledge, is against what the Founding Fathers originally wanted for this country, and that's what they wanted for this country was unity, not separatism, not this group over here, not multiculturalism. And when I say multiculturalism, I mean people separating themselves by certain things, like by their culture. Some harmless examples I would say would be like Chinatown in a city. That kind of multiculturalism it's okay because those people still integrate with the United States. They still integrate with the average idea of the United States. I'm talking about multiculturalism where you have people that are, I'm just going to say it, that are part of a faith that wants to separate themselves entirely from everybody else, that wants to have their own laws, that wants to have their own rules, that wants to have their own housing, that wants to have all of that stuff. That sort of multiculturalism is a poison to a country like the United States. And on this 4th of July, I think people need to actually reflect on that, because right now we're sort of tearing ourselves apart at the seams, and this is a bad thing. So, as usual, put your comments in the comments section. I think Amber might have some input. I'm not sure.
I'm typing stuff up. What about
the tyranny of majority and the majority and all of that?
Okay.
You know, sort of justifying treating people like shit because they're a minority.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's why we do have protections. That's why we're not a total democracy.
Right.
In this country, and we still have some issues because it still doesn't work well. We still have a lot of groups and companies that have influence that fucks it up.
Right.
But it's true though, and it's even something you talk about in poli-sci class if you've ever taken a poli-sci class. And they talk about there's this movie, I forget what it is. It's an older movie, and it was talking about the shadow side of democracy, when the majority, I mean, think about it, let's say, let's take a Middle Eastern country, for example. Let's say the majority of them want Sharia, so guess what?
Right.
You're getting Sharia. So, I mean, you could, and if we were a democracy, 100%, I mean, you'd have that same thing here. And to some extent, we still kind of do the whole majority thing, because by the vote and all that stuff, even though it's representative, you still kind of have that element to it about the majority. However, we do have a lot of protections for the minority. As long as it doesn't get so weird that we're bending over backwards for minorities that have harmful beliefs that can, then there's that weird oppression of the majority, which is kind of odd.
Right.
And again, it depends on what ideas they're espousing at any time, but that is an issue, and democracy isn't always unicorns, butterflies, and all that stuff.
Right, right.
And multiculturalism, I'll say something about that. And I think a lot of people, even myself included, didn't really quite understand or don't really understand what multiculturalism is. They think, and I thought this for a while because I'm like, well, what's wrong with multiculturalism? To be honest, because I
used to think the same too. Yeah.
I take so much from different cultures. You know, my dancing, the music I listen to, the clothes I wear, my religious practices, food I eat. Like, there's so many things that I take from other cultures that I was like, well, what are they talking about, multiculturalism? And then I realized that it's not about engaging in certain aspects of your culture. It's about becoming a separate nation almost within your host country.
Right.
And segregating yourself by that culture.
Right.
So, you know, like me, I'm like, you can have your food, you can have your, as long as it's not cruel and unhealthy and stuff, but that's another topic.
Yeah.
Clothes, music, and to some extent, you know, religion, as long as your religious practices aren't, you know, bad, you know, like, you're not, like, slaughtering people and you know, pressing, you know, that sort of thing. So you can have these elements of your culture, but still assimilate to the rules of the nation, the legal system of the nation. And I think it needs to, when people talk about multiculturalism, they need to explain what it is. Because a lot of people, when they hear that, they're like, well, what are you talking about? You don't want them to have their restaurant, or you don't want them to have their clothes store. That's what they hear. They don't hear what it really is, because I just found that just really started to understand multiculturalism more when I started looking into the refugee crisis. That was when I actually understood what they were talking about. But I think a lot of people think like, oh, well, that sounds really bigoted. You're just being an asshole when you're talking about that. So I think that needs to be explained.
I think the idea of what multiculturalism is does need to be explained a little better. The way I look at it is multiculturalism is actually the opposite of the melting pot, which is what this country is about. It's about people coming together, not breaking into separate sections. So, so let's recap basically this video. Covered a lot of areas. It started off with Christie having his thing and his beach separated and all that sort of thing. And how it still would have happened even if the beach was open to the public. And the reason why this happened, or why this happens with Congress critters and with government critters, is
it's like assassination attempts.
Exactly, assassination attempts. Like I said, what happened with those guys just practicing for a baseball game? They got shot, for God's sake.
So basically they aren't allowed to go to the beach.
Yeah, they're not allowed to go to the beach. They're not allowed to go out and have fun. They're human beings as well. You know, as much as we despise some of the things they do, they are human beings. They do want to go out and have fun. And this case with Christie is just, it sounds like a whole bunch of stuff that happened. But it led to my discussion about the protected classes and what led to those. It is a result of bullying. It's the result of threats. It's the result of unnecessary violence, or not unnecessary violence, unnecessary angst. I don't know what the word would be, but I hope you get the idea. So for this 4th of July, just, you know, have that thought in your mind whenever you hear about politicians or just people in general enjoying themselves. That's what the holiday is about. Oh, and Christie did this on July 3rd. A day that's not normally a holiday for most people. Yeah. It's not the 4th.
Yeah, we did it before, so it's...
Yeah, it might have also been on Sunday as well, but I think it happened on the 3rd. I can't really get a clear story on that. If anybody knows, go ahead and put it in the comments. All right. Well, have a happy 4th. Goodbye.